Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rockets. In this episode, I sit down and talk with Dionicios Closet, a luxury brand that specializes in custom garments for men, women, and children with a concentration in custom suiting. First off, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talking with me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Thanks for having me. My name is Rasheem Pitman, owner and head designer of Dionicios Closet, where we focus on custom suiting for men, women, and children. We also focus on custom garments as well. Recently, we have just started doing styling for our clients and new clients. But from overall, I'm just a designer, style architect, and a Christian.
So take me a little bit back. Are you originally from Huntsville, or did work or family kind of bring you to Huntsville?
Okay, so I am originally from the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Bronx. My dad wanted to move to Huntsville. He wanted to pursue his dream in studying theology. He did not pursue that, to say the least. So he started his own business, and he's doing that on the side. And then he moved me, my sister, and my mother a year later. When we first got here, I hated it. It was slow. It was a culture shock. I didn't recognize anything. There was no variety of foods. You had to have your own car. The city transit was non-existent when I first came here, but now it is definitely improved, and I actually love Huntsville. I never thought I would say that, but I love Huntsville.
So is your background originally in design, or what were you doing prior to starting this business?
Prior to starting Dionicios Closet, I was working for T-Mobile. I was a manager at T-Mobile and assistant manager, and I did that for several years. I moved up in the company. It was something that I was used to. I have a sales background. I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor, a couple sneaker stores in New York. So I have that clothier education, and to say the least. My last occupation was T-Mobile, and I left that job in November of 2020. And that was my specialty: sales and talking to people, educating them on what they need, assessing their issues, their problems, and just giving them the right fit for their buck.
So do you think that those jobs you had in the sales and in working in those different industries helped prepare you for what you do now? Or how did the skills you do for what you do in Denisio's Closet, how did you acquire those skills?
Basically, the principles that was instilled in me from my parents and from the workforce, the experience. Sales, everybody's different, so you have to adjust to everybody's liking, their preferences, and I did that well. Like I said, I will ask them questions, and I'll see what they need, what they want. I'll show them a price, and I'll assess, the situation from there. But the principles of, I would say 3 principles that I got from working at a gym. That was also another job that I had. I worked at a fitness gym, and a principle that one of my trainers instilled in me was to isolate, ignore, and to identify, isolate, and ignore. Identify the problem, isolate it, and ignore it. A lot of people, when they come with objections, it's normally fluff. So we get that out the way. Identify it, get that out the way, and see what do you really need. You come into my store when I was at T-Mobile, and you have a broken phone. You want something, you want an iPhone 12 Pro Max, but your budget is a Galaxy 3. You see what I'm saying? So I'll identify that. I'll tell you, hey, this is a great phone. This is what you need. You may want in the future, but for right now, this is your best fit. Come back in 6 months, and we'll try to upgrade you from this to that. We'll have a special, and I'll just, butter it up and tell them, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and they'll normally buy it.
So a lot of times when you start your own business, it's sometimes out of the need of seeing that there's not an option for that business in town, or that you think you could do that job better than some other competition. What kind of drove you to start this own business for yourself? Was there somebody doing it, or was there nobody doing it?
So there's nothing new under the sun. But for me, I had a need of variety. I like variety. I like different types of food. I like meeting new people. Like I said, I'm from New York. My mom is from Panama. My dad is from St. Thomas. So I have 2 different cultures in my household. So that's what I know. That's all I know. So when it comes to dressing, when I was going out at the time, before I, gave my life to Christ, I did not want to wear sneakers, a t-shirt, and, some jeans. I did not stand out. Our goal at the time for that mindset was, I need to talk to an attractive woman. She needs to, everybody is, the first thing that somebody sees is what a guy has on or a person has on. So my question to myself was, how was I going to separate myself from the rest? My dad, growing up, he always used to tell me, Rasheem, put your shirt in your pants. I hated that. And I'm like, why? Everybody's playing basketball. Why you want me to play basketball with my shirt tucked in my pants?
Like the basketball skills aren't gonna be as good at that point. And I gotta win. Come on.
So I really cared about my image then, but I didn't understand. But as I grew older and the process of maturation took place, I realized the effects that carrying yourself and respecting yourself and tucking your shirt in your pants, what that would do. So I tested it out. Me and my friends used to go to parties all the time. I threw on a suit. That automatically separated me from the rest. I may not have had suit money at the time, but I portrayed that. And so that was something that I became addicted to. And the principles, like I said, what that was instilled in me as a child, it never really left. And so I saw the effects, and then as I educated myself more in suiting and clothing, it just drove home the foundation. And I just went from there ever since. When I was going out, another thing was I couldn't find different options. So I did the blues, I did the blacks, I did the grays. That started to get, boring. And I was like, okay, I did this already. I need to challenge myself. I couldn't find a blue suit, a light blue suit, or a purple, or maybe an orange for the particular events that I was going to. And because I couldn't find it, and it was arrested to that season, I had to make my own. So a series of unfortunate events happened, and I ended up making my own garments. I lost my job at T-Mobile, my last job. So I was fired. I have an interesting story. So I was fired at T-Mobile in December of 2015. So I lost my job there, and I would say, was I depressed? I was a little depressed because that was something that I knew, and it was just like
it was familiar. It was almost easy to go to work.
It's easy. So I'm just like, man, I'm not getting a steady flow of income every 2 weeks, and the money was good, and I'm making more money than the average person my age. So I had a real conversation with myself and God. Anytime I'm stuck in a rut, I'll just talk to God. I'm like, all right, cool, you got my attention. And I don't want to be put in those predicaments too much, too many times. But I spoke to him and I told him, all right, I need a job. I don't have a job. I have too much respect for myself, not to belittle anyone else, but I have too much respect for myself and in my talent that you have given me to work at McDonald's. Like I said, I'm not belittling anybody that works at McDonald's. I heard in California they're paying $15 an hour. That's really great. But I could not see myself doing that because I know I'm worth more. I know my worth. So I asked him, I said, listen, what am I good at? What do you want me to do? He asked me, he told me, he said, what do you like? I said, I love fashion and I love barbering. That's just a hobby that I had. I always edged myself up when I was young because my mom didn't take me to the barbershop every week, so I didn't have a crispy edge up. Like I said, being from New York is a lot of pressure. You have to play the part.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, so how do I always talked about having my own clothing store and barbershop, but I don't know. I just, passed it off. But then, God came to me and told me again, he said, make your own clothes. I went out I asked people on Instagram like, "Yo, how can I start my own business, or how can I do this?" I did research, and everything was just so far fetched. I'm like, dude, what?
Yeah, like there's so much stuff out there about like how to do that. So it's just kind of like I don't know. It's
it's
just
overwhelming.
it's a lot of noise
Yeah, and
sometimes.
I'm just like, dude. And then the people that were connected, they didn't want to assist me. No harm to them. Protect your brand, protect your stuff. It is what it is. I have no hard feelings. Um, so the only thing that I could do was do it myself. So there was a lady. I have a friend that he made clothes. His name was Bijan, and he's from Canada. He made his own clothes. I admired that. I asked him. I said, "Look, I want to make suits." His dad used to make suits. I told him, I know your dad's not gonna come here and train me. We're not gonna FaceTime, and I need something. I'm a hands-on person. If I see it, I could do it. So I told him, I said, "Hey, how can you teach me?" So he told me, go to the fabric store. I went to the fabric store, bought the amount of yard that it takes to make a suit. It's about 6 yards. I bought that. I bought a tech pack. I bought all the patterns. If you were to ever open a suit pattern tech pack, you would. It's overwhelming. It's a lot of pieces. So I did that, but my mind was made up. I had time and I had little money, so I was able to teach myself. So he taught me a little things, the basics, and then as I started progressing, he knew a tailor. Her name is Miss Laverne. She used to be on South Parkway. She made clothes. She was a seamstress. So I went to her. I said, humbled myself. I said, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Rasheem. I'm looking to make my own clothing. Is there any way that you can help me?" She's a sweet lady. I need to pay her a visit, by the way. But she said, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you. Just bring what you got." But she's she's like a grandma. You could come to your grandma with problems, and she'll take on your problem and she'll do everything. But I wanted her to teach me how to do it.
Not do it for you.
Exactly. So I knew that I could, be like, "Hey, get this done," and be like, "Hey, here you go, here's some money." But
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. I needed you to teach me how to fish, so that just in case I could sit down and do it myself.
Yeah.
So, and I needed to know the foundation and the art of crafting a suit, and to appreciate it. Not a lot of people appreciate a T-shirt. They don't know how much work goes into making sure everything is aligned properly. So during that time, I had acquired an appreciation for clothing, period, because it was frustrating. Putting on a shoulder was something that almost brought me to tears because it was frustrating. I'm like, listen, I am actually trying with all my heart to get this sleeve to
just
fit into this
cannot
shoulder,
do it.
and it's not sitting right. And then she'll come and just be like, "Oh, you gotta
yeah,
do
just do
this."
that.
And I'm like, "What?" And I said, "You know what? I'll delegate that job to you. I'll do everything else."
All the skills that you're going to teach me, just don't teach me this one.
Yeah,
just go ahead and
I'm
do
good.
it for me,
Exactly.
and then I'll do everything else.
Right. So I made my first couple suits. I was still unemployed, so I would take $20 that I had, I'll go to the shop and the cloth store, and I'll buy fabric, and I'll just buy elaborate fabrics. And I went to Walmart one time and I bought some fabrics, and I'll make something from it. I'm like, "Oh, this is actually cool." Not knowing and educating myself, I didn't have the education at the time that you have to get a certain particular type of fabric to make clothes that will last. Because you could buy fabric
Any
at
fabric,
Walmart.
yeah.
Yeah, you could buy fabric at Walmart, and it'll look good, but it's not going to iron properly. The interfacing of a suit isn't going to stick to this. The stitching may not last long because the quality is too frail. So I had to go through a process of education, which came with experience. And so we did that, made my first couple suits, and I was just like, wow, actually, I could do this. So what I did was, prior to that, I committed to going on a trip with my friends. So I had a deadline on how fast I could make these suits. So it put more pressure on myself accidentally by committing to something and then not having something to show for it. So I told my friends, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there. We're gonna go to Atlanta, have fun." But normally when we go out, we would, dress up and dress the part. But I didn't have nothing, so I had to make those two suits. It took me 1 week to make a pair of pants, and about 2 weeks to make a blazer. And so I made it just in time. I didn't finish the inside of one of my suits, so one of my suits wasn't lined, but that's also a style. It's called online jacket or online suit.
Did you know that wasn't a style at the time?
No,
Okay.
I did. Not really. No, I didn't. I just it was just incomplete to me.
And then like later on,
yeah,
you
I
were
was
like,
just like,
hey,
oh,
I was
yeah,
kind of
this is-
stylish
yeah.
at that point.
I was ahead of my time. Nah, but yeah, I've noticed that. So that suit was incomplete, but it's still everything still came together. So later on during that time, I got a job at where was it? State Farm. I got a job at State Farm, and then I did a night job at for Ability Plus, where we took care of mentally challenged kids. And during that time, I was like, you know what? I tasted that unemployment water. I don't want to taste that again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block myself from not from free time. So I will work Monday through Friday, and then I will work my night job Thursday through Sunday morning. So I will have probably like 16 hours of me time. But during that time, I was working at work, and I was building my brand. I already had I had already gained my followers on Instagram, their trust. I already gained their trust via Instagram, so they knew I could put things together. So that transition from just dressing just to get likes to dressing to educate you and to show you, hey, I have my own business, was somewhat seamless because I already instilled that trust that they already gave me previously.
So you kind of start creating these suits and kind of go to that first event. You kind of get those 2 suits ready to go out with some friends to Atlanta, and you kind of start this business while you're doing 2 different jobs. Mm-hmm. Did the success of the business happen right off the bat, or did you kind of have to struggle, and how long did that time last from when you kind of first created that first suit to when you were able to really kind of see this as, I could do this full time?
Okay, so when I first started, like I said, I didn't have that much education. I could watch a million YouTube videos. I could just go off of my experience. Being that, I'm a Christian, here's a little bit about my background. My mom used to take me to church. Well, my dad used to take me to church every Saturday. My mom would always get me dressed. So I knew how to put things together based off of those principles that was still instilled in me as a youth. So I went to a Christian school, college, Oakwood University. And when you're in college, for me, I'm a middle class family. So I didn't have all the resources to get what I wanted every time. So I had to make what I got last, and I had to be creative. The thing about me is I can go to a store and put things together rather than the next person, they'll buy what's on a mannequin. So what I did to train myself, and I didn't even know, was go to the thrift store. The thrift store, you can't prepare. You can't expect what's going to be in there. Similar to the Goodie Vault, you can't expect what you're going to get. So the challenge is you have to come out with something that makes sense, and you got to put that together. So that kind of trained me in being creative. Now, when it comes to the success of my business, I just went off of what I knew and my experience, and people bought it. As I went and as the business progressed, I was educating myself, and I was pricing my garments based on my education. I didn't come off the bat, hey, my prices are $900 or whatever it is.
Yeah. It was like as your experience and your education grew, so
right.
did that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
because
of course.
I'm not going to charge you a certain amount and then you ask me a question and I can't answer
Yeah.
it. So I charge based off of my experience.
Of course.
And that took time. So I wasn't really making too much money when I first started because I was trying out new things, and I was just like, okay, let me make sure to add this much, and just in case we have some alterations.
Figuring out like what works and what doesn't work, and like this is an easier way to do this. This, like, I think oftentimes, like, even when you jump into something and not knowing how to do it, like I even think of like myself as like I can do anything. Like I'll try anything, and I can make it work. I might not make it work efficiently and quickly the first time. But once I get the practice, I'll figure out the processes,
right.
And then eventually it's just
seamless.
It's seamless. It's easy, and at that point, that's when that education part kind of happens too. So continue and take me through that process.
Okay, so as I, was educating myself, I was charging accordingly. So I would make $50 off of a suit, 25, maybe even 10, because I needed to get people to believe that I am doing this, and I know what's somewhat best for you. I know how to make you look your best because I've done it myself, and I see that the work is out there, to see, that proves that and it speaks for that. So as I, was progressing and I was, educating myself and selling, I noticed that the quality of work that I was putting out was, I wouldn't want to say it, I was undercutting myself, but I quickly learned, put it that way.
Yeah.
I quickly learned, and I was just like, okay, this is better than, this brand that's being offered in stores. My quality lasts longer. So as I educated myself, like I said, I charged accordingly. And I think it's
Of course,
fair,
yeah.
And
Did that education come quickly?
yeah, it did. It did. I got clients word of mouth, Instagram. I made some mistakes, expensive mistakes, and that's one thing I had to fall in love with quick, mistakes. I had to really fall in love with making mistakes and now I look for mistakes so that I can improve.
It's kind of like the identify thing. It's like
Correct.
I think often the mistakes lead to bigger successes than the successes themselves. So like
Correct.
if you're able to see exactly what you do wrong and being able to adapt to that, I mean, I think that's when the real like benefit from that comes. Like the bigger benefit then. I mean, mistakes are never something fun, especially expensive mistakes.
No, it's not. It's stressful.
But I think kind of that whole mindset of being willing to like being okay with a mistake.
Right.
Did those first clients, I mean, do you remember that first suit you sold to somebody, or that first kind of like of how long that took you to create that process, and then how you were able to maybe make that process more seamless, like how we were talking about?
Yes. My first client was he was a bigger client, and the suit was bad, due to my standards. And he still loved it, which was interesting. I don't try to figure that out too much, but he gave me another opportunity, and we just took it from there. My first the suits after that were a little too tight, so I had to adjust accordingly. And but other than that, everybody pretty much loved it. But I did make some mistakes.
Do you think that high standard you set for yourself was a good thing at that time, or you think it hurts you in any way?
Not at all. Not at all. I have to have high standards, because if not, I will become complacent. I believe human beings, if we don't set standards for ourselves, we'll become complacent and start dying and being lazy, indolent,
When you kind of started creating this brand and the brand started kind of growing, the success, the word of mouth, you started creating more clients, you started creating more suits for people and kind of getting that process down. Were you always looking 10 steps ahead, or were you kind of sitting in that moment and taking full advantage of it?
I'm going to be honest. I was sitting in the moment. I did not, even when I launched the brand, I didn't put too much thought into it because I was in the moment. And a lot of things that I did in the past, it made me who I am today, but now I know to, sometimes you got to plan ahead for certain things because you set an expectation. I would have took a lot of stress off of myself. Even though I met those expectations, I would have taken a lot of pressure off myself because of if I had planned prior. So now I'm sometimes I think I'm a little too careful to the point where I don't release certain things. So now I'm in the phase of, I need to plan and then just release instead of just plan and then planning forever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
and I think sometimes it's like, do you think, I don't know, I think sometimes for me personally, when you're in the moment, you're able to continue to work, you're grinding at what you're doing. I mean, you're spending long hours, you're creating these like handmade suits. Do you get to that point where then you kind of dwell on like the past months and you say like, wow, I've come a long way since January? Or do you often get to like sit down and like realize like just how successful or how much how many clients you've been able to have and how many like awards you've been able to achieve over these last few years of doing this business.
Yeah, so I'm not good at taking compliments. So that's one thing. Another thing is I don't take credit for any of my success. I give all the credit to God. This is his business. I'm just the manager of it. He has blessed me with this talent, and I'm giving it back to him. And how I give it back to him is by meeting my clients' needs, whether they need a suit, a sweater, a book, some advice, and also introducing them to the person that has gotten me to where I'm at today. So when somebody compliments me, or if I look back on my accomplishments, I can't tell myself like, yo, I did a good job, it's me. I'm like, thank you for your grace. Thank you for blessing me with this. Now let's move forward. So I try my best not to look at myself as if I did this myself. He brought all the clients to me. I didn't do anything. So he gets all the credit and, glory and all that.
Of course, yeah. I think it's just for people that are listening and people that aren't familiar with what you, or some of the work you've done and some of the work you've been able to, the people you've been able to meet and some of the clients you've been able to work with. I just want to mention some of the things that I read from your website that really kind of, as someone like who I've been familiar with what you do in town, but this is the first time I've actually ever met you.
Right.
I was blown away.
Oh man, thank God.
So I want to kind of mention some of those real quick. So in 2019, Dionicios Closet was featured in GQ Best Dress for the 2019 Grammys, 2019 NAACP, Esquire, and Pop Sugar. You've also worked with many gospel artists, entertainers, R&B artists, and WWE, WCW Hall of Famer Booker T, to name a few. And that was one that stuck out to me. So are you... someone from you're not from Huntsville, but you've been in Huntsville for a long time. You've kind of, this is where your home is now. Is it crazy just to thank those people and just to know where your background and your story, and then seeing the people you've been able to work with?
Yeah, I never in my entire life would have thought Booker T would call me my phone. I would be,
and you would have his number.
Yeah, he would call my phone. So I would be at work when I was at T-Mobile, and I'll be dealing with a customer, and he'll call, and I will leave the floor.
Hey, I gotta
hold on
a second.
This is my future. So I'll leave the floor, and I'll go talk to him. Place his orders. Catch up, whatever. But it's just God could put you in connections with anybody.
Yeah, you just gotta be ready.
You just gotta be ready. At that time, I was ready.
The client wasn't ready for you to leave, but you were ready to leave. Hey, hold on 1 second. You don't know what
You don't know what is going on.
Hold on a second. Gotta go.
And that same client is probably asking for me at T-Mobile.
Probably so.
He's on Jefferson Street. But yeah, man. God, made that happen. That connection happen, and it's just amazing how, I need to think bigger. And he's like, yo, you need to think a lot bigger. This is who I want to put you in connection with next, but you're not ready. Yeah. So that comes with being obedient and faithful and, doing what I have to do on my end so that he could give me those clients and those opportunities.
Yeah, and he doesn't really prepare you for something or get you in a situation that you're not ready for.
Exactly.
And I think at that point, you're like he already knows the clients you have in mind and clients he has for you. You just have to, like you said, as the education grows, as the experience grows, and as the skills grow, those clients then show up.
Correct.
Starting a business is, like I said, like we were mentioning before, is not necessarily an easy thing. There's a lot of noise out there when you're starting it. What is something you know now about being a business owner that you wish you would have known when you first started?
What is something? That's a good question. What is something I know now about being a business owner when I first started? That's a good question. You got me on this one. Goal accomplished. Nothing really comes to mind right now because I didn't just quit my job cold turkey. The mistakes that I made, I had the financial backing to fix those mistakes.
Of course.
So I know a lot of people will be zealous and they're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit tomorrow and then go from there. And then they realize, yo, you still got to pay your rent. You still got to do this.
There's a lot of things that have to like come into place for sure.
That's not going to stop because you quit your job. So sticking to the plan that I had and, you know, allowing God to direct those situations. So I will stay working, and then eventually this is my motto. Eventually I'll taper off and then just leave. But a lot of those mistakes I made while I had a job, so I had financial backing to fix those mistakes.
And I think like for anyone that's listening and wanting to start something, I think there's no better time to start than just to start.
Right.
But I think there's also the kind of mindset of being able to start and being able to be
practical.
And like I said, I think if anyone that has an idea or has a business that they want to start, if that be a restaurant or a clothing business or a online store or whatever that might be, I think just starting is the first step. It is the hardest step often. I think even if you have the financial security and you even have that job that you're not necessarily you're not planning on leaving, then it is still a hard thing to start. And I think that's like the first battle. How much of your success thus far with Dionicios Closet would you contribute to being in the right place at the right time, and how much would you contribute to your hard work?
Faith without work is dead. So my faith in God, obviously, and then also putting in the work to match that, being a co-laborer with him and working with him, and that's where the results come from. Faith and works. I don't believe in just having faith and just not doing anything. I believe in having faith and putting in the work before you see the results. So the success that I have now is due to the faith and the works that I have put in behind the scenes. So now it's coming into fruition, you know? So that's what that is.
What advice would you give to someone who's looking at starting their own business and kind of taking that next step?
Pray about what, you know, God wants you to do, and then just starting. Do your research, start. If you have the financial backing to quit your job, do that. There's more free time, you'll succeed faster. But if you can't, there's nothing wrong with keeping a 9 to 5, working at night. You're just going to be working double. Yeah. And then you just taper off from one end and then readjust the latter end.
And I think that passion for it too. I think you
have to have passion.
It's not an easy thing, and it's not for everybody.
Right. It's just like working out. A lot of people want to be in shape, but they don't want to put the work in.
So having just being willing to start, but also having that passion that even when there's hard days or you lose clients or you lose business or you gain business, like knowing the balance of like, hey, it's not going to be easy every day of the week.
No.
And it's not something that it's for everybody. So like, if you try and you fail, there's nothing wrong with that. Like
that's the experience.
If anything, you've learned more by just trying than if you would have just sat back and said, hey, like I'll let this idea fizzle away and it'll be going. I know with my having connections with Manny at the Goodie Vault, he attributes a lot of his being willing just to start to you by just being willing, by you telling him, hey, like why don't you just get a place here? Why don't you just like start showcasing some of your stuff and like getting a place? Like just start that. And now he's been able to do this full time for himself, and like he's doing amazing. Yeah. And he's been able to travel and get a lot of amazing pieces. So I think it's a community of small business owners that are able to push each other to kind of
motivate
to levels that they never really imagined. How can people connect with Dionicios Closet and support you in what you're doing?
They can reach out to me on Instagram at Dionicios Closet, or email me. My phone number's on there. And we could just chop it up. I can educate you on, whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about God, we could talk about that. Fashion, we could talk about that, and we just go from there.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed learning more about Dionicios Closet and a little bit about your story, and I continue to look forward to the success you'll have in the future for years to come.
Thanks for having me.